In early 2025, a letter surfaced that quietly redrew the boundaries of official UAP acknowledgement. Written by John Kosloski, the acting director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the document detailed an incident spanning 2 days in October 2023, one observed not by fighter pilots over restricted airspace, but by personnel from 6 federal law enforcement agencies on the ground. What they described defied easy categorization: luminous orbs hovering in proximity to critical infrastructure that appeared to launch secondary orbs from themselves. AARO investigated. They had data, and 40% of what was observed could not be explained. Context matters here. John Kosloski assumed leadership of AARO following Sean Kirkpatrick's departure in December 2023, where Kirkpatrick was publicly dismissive, frequently steering conclusions toward prosaic explanations before investigations concluded. Kosloski has operated with markedly less fanfare, but arguably more institutional credibility. He came from within the defense intelligence community. His appointment signaled continuity, but the tone of AARO's communications began to shift. This letter, sent to Congressional Oversight, represents that shift in concrete terms. It is not a press release. It is not testimony crafted for cameras. It is an internal accountability document, and that makes its contents harder to dismiss. The incident unfolded over 2 consecutive days in October 2023 at an undisclosed domestic location near critical infrastructure. 6 federal law enforcement agencies had personnel on scene, a detail that itself is extraordinary. This wasn't a single witness glancing at a light in the sky. Multiple trained observers from separate chains of command independently documented the same phenomena. The primary observation: luminous spherical objects, orbs, that exhibited controlled, non-ballistic movement. More striking, witnesses reported these primary orbs releasing or launching secondary orbs, which then moved independently. The behavior suggested coordination. It suggested structure. It did not suggest balloons, drones, or known atmospheric phenomena. What distinguishes this case is the evidence pipeline. Witnesses captured footage on personal smartphones, a departure from the classified sensor data that typically dominates UAP reporting. This matters for 2 reasons. First, smartphone evidence is inherently more accessible to oversight. It doesn't require SIFE access or clearance to review. Second, it represents a democratization of the evidentiary chain. AARO reportedly had sufficient data to analyze the incident thoroughly. They resolved approximately 60% of the observations, attributing them to identifiable objects or phenomena, but 40% resisted explanation. Not 40% due to insufficient data, 40% unexplained despite ample data. That distinction is critical and unprecedented in official AARO communications.
AARO's analytical framework has long been criticized by Congress, by whistleblowers, by the Inspector General for what critics call a resolution bias. The office historically categorized cases as resolved if any plausible conventional explanation existed, regardless of fit. Kirkpatrick's tenure saw the vast majority of cases closed as drones, birds, or sensor artifacts. The Kosloski letter represents a methodological departure. By explicitly stating that 40% of observations in a well-documented case remain unexplained, AARO is acknowledging an analytical limit, not a data limit, an explanatory one. For an office accused of premature closure, this is significant. It suggests the evidentiary threshold for unexplained has at minimum been honestly applied here. For decades, the strongest UAP evidence came wrapped in classification. The Nimitz encounters, the gimbal footage, the radar data, all captured by military sensors, all subject to classification barriers that limited public and congressional access. This incident inverts that paradigm. Federal law enforcement officers used personal devices. The evidence exists outside traditional military classification structures. This aligns with a broader trend emerging since the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act expanded AARO's mandate to include reports from non-military federal employees. We are witnessing the evidence base broaden, and with it, the difficulty of containing disclosure within national security frameworks alone. The orb morphology itself deserves scrutiny. NASA's independent UAP study panel noted in 2023 that metallic orbs constitute one of the most commonly reported and least understood UAP categories. The late 2023 incursions over Langley Air Force Base involved objects described in similar terms. Reports from Eglin Air Force Base followed comparable patterns. Now, a multi-agency civilian observation confirms the same morphology, with the added dimension of orbs deploying secondary objects. If these are adversarial drones, no known nation publicly fields platforms matching this behavior profile. If they are novel atmospheric phenomena, no existing model accounts for the described deployment behavior. The pattern is accruing faster than explanations. This letter did not arrive in a vacuum. It was sent to congressional overseers who have spent the past 2 years demanding exactly this kind of institutional candor. Senators Gillibrand and Rubio, Representatives Luna and Burchett have repeatedly pushed for AARO to produce honest assessments rather than reflexive debunking. The Kosloski letter, if its contents are fully verified through additional FOIA releases, represents the first known instance of AARO formally documenting a multi-agency, multi-witness UAP event where a substantial fraction of observations are admitted as genuinely unexplained with adequate data. That is not a small bureaucratic concession.
In the architecture of disclosure, it is load-bearing. Here is where we stand. An official United States government office tasked specifically with resolving anomalous phenomena has documented an event witnessed by 6 federal agencies where objects displayed behavior inconsistent with known technology, and has admitted it cannot explain a significant portion of what was observed. This is not a leaked memo. It is not anonymous testimony. It is a named official communicating through formal channels to the United States Congress. The threshold for what constitutes official acknowledgement just moved. Not with a press conference, not with dramatic testimony, with a letter, a percentage, and the quiet admission that some of what was seen over those 2 days in October remains, for now, beyond explanation.